Greetings from Geneva. My name is Jerry Velasquez, and I'm the head of the Making Cities Resilient campaign. And at present, we work with more than 3,500 cities globally. These cities are those which are interested in building their own resilience and would like to partner with other cities and would like to seek guidance on how to do such efforts. I'm going to be talking briefly to you today on some of the key messages that led to the development of the Sendai Framework for Disasters Reduction, which was adopted at the Third UN World Conference held in Sendai, Japan last March 2015. I would also like to link it at the end on how it's relevant to the issue of land use and urban planning. Firstly, over the last 10 years, what we've seen is that based on the evidence we have, is that there are both the good news and the bad news. Let's start with the good news. Firstly, that we see that for certain hazards such as typhoons and tropical cyclones, there is in fact a decrease in the number of people dying from disasters, especially in particular regions such as Southeast Asia. Now, this is quite surprising considering the observation that there is in fact a growing number of people and assets that are exposed to such hazards. So the human exposure, for example, the human exposure to tropical cyclone is increasing for all regions of the world. This means more people in coastal areas, in floodplains, and so on. In addition, if we look over the last 40 years or so of observed data, we will see that the number of strong cyclones, the category 3 and 4, is in fact increasing. There are more stronger cyclones over history. So if we combine more people exposed and more tropical cyclones that are stronger, it logically would mean that there would be more people dying. However, what we see is that there's less people dying. So this means that all of the work by governments and all other stakeholders to improve early warning, improve vulnerability through preparedness and contingency planning, and also some of the gains that we've had through achievements through the Millennium Development Goals, for example, improved roads and access, improvements in health facilities and so on, have led to this result of reduction in mortality. Now, having said that, there is also bad news. And what is the bad news? Well, over the last 10 years, despite the fact that we've had some progress in reducing mortality, we've never been able to address the increasing economic losses due to disasters. And these losses are going through the roof. For the first time, for example, in history, over the last 5 years, we've seen disaster losses over 100 billion, for 5 consecutive years. In addition, over the last 10 years of record-breaking temperature and rainfall, we have seen economic losses close to $1.4 trillion. That's a lot of money considering that these same amount that we lose could be used for social expenditures. Now, this problem is not a problem for the poor countries, because what we're seeing is that these increase in losses are in fact greatest in richer countries, in upper middle income and high income countries in particular. So the absolute losses are in countries such as Japan, in Europe, in the US, and in New Zealand. So that means that addressing economic losses is really a problem for rich countries, because obviously they have high valued assets in hazard prone areas. Having said that, the problem is also quite a concern for poorer countries, because even though the actual losses are smaller compared to rich countries, because of the small amount of their GDP, the impact to their development, in this case, if we look at the cumulative net capital formation, which is the amount of wealth that a country accumulates, particularly small disaster for a country like Santa Lucia or Samoa will bring them back 10 years in terms of development. Whereas a country like the US or India, even though they suffer fairly large disaster losses, would barely register a blip into their capital formation. So absolute losses are greatest in rich countries. Relative losses are also greatest in poorer countries. And what we see is that it is the economic pattern of development that drives these losses. So if we take the example of Thailand, most of the losses from flooding, in the 2011 flooding, 90% of losses are borne by the private sector. And we know why that is, because most of the economic activity that were damaged were in fact these factories in the floodplains, and they know that they're in the floodplains because these factories had 3-meter flood walls, so it was expected. However, what was not expected is that most of the workers would start building their homes close to the factories, and these workers' homes will not have these 3-meter flood walls. So the losses that have been generated and are being absorbed are caused by these patterns of putting people and assets over time into hazard-prone areas. And the challenge that we face is that eventually we will not be able to bear these losses. And at the moment, I mean, they are noticeably increasing already, but there will come a time that these losses will be at a certain point that we will not be able to bear them. There are studies that show that the value of the assets at risk is increasing by 7% every year, or more or less doubles. The economic loss risk is doubling every 10 years. And this is an incredible amount that we're facing in terms of possible future losses. So how does this now reflect to land use and urban planning? Because the biggest opportunity that the Sendai framework have identified is the prevention of future risk. Although the built-up risk in cities, in towns, in the urban environment, as of now, is very difficult to undo, because it's very difficult to undo the cities that we have. Or even if we can, it will be very costly. However, the opportunity and the real benefit that we see is that try to catch the development that is yet to come. So therefore, this means that the important aspect that urban and land use planning really would play for reducing future risks in terms of disasters. So in this regard, we really are hoping that we could determine through all of the events that are happening as of the moment, the Sendai framework, the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, and soon Habitat 3, the New Urban Agenda, will set the stage for a global strategy to address the growth of future risks through urban and land use planning. So the work that you're doing is extremely important for us, and we hope that we could find ways and means to make urban and land use planning help us address this growing concern of increasing future risk. So I look forward to a fruitful discussion, and look forward also to the results of your seminar. Thank you very much.